and Harmony Goals podcast. We are super excited today because we have a phenomenal guest joining us today all the way from America. Am I right?
Canada.
Oh, Canada. That's even better. From Canada.
You know what though? Everyone always thinks that I'm from California because I sound half like a valley girl and half like a snowboarder skater girl. So really your guess is not far off. Like most people actually assume that I'm from California. So I will take the honor and go with it.
I feel like Canada's better. So let's go with where you're from Canada.
12 times better. Yes.
Okay, cool. So Erika is a sex and confident coach. I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself and tell people who you are just so they can get a better idea of who exactly you are.
Totally. So hi, everyone. My name's Erika Eileen. As your beautiful guests have mentioned, I am a sex and confidence coach. And I work through the lens of HAZE, which is health at every size. So I truly believe that you can be confident and have healthy habits no matter what size you are. And I do believe all bodies deserve equality. And I also work through the lens of sex positivity, meaning no matter how you identify or what your sexual orientation is, you are deserving and capable of amazing pleasure and feeling connected to that side of ourself, which is a huge part of us. But because of the pressures and the taboos around the topic of sex, we don't really love to connect that piece to our confidence and how we feel about ourselves and our identity.
I love that.
Amazing.
That's super interesting.
So how exactly did you get into becoming a confidence and sex coach?
So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 7 years old. And with any diagnosis of the body when you're younger, you do start to get a miscued idea of what it means to like have a body and what it means to live within your body. Now, my disease is also very wrongfully and unfairly connected to a lot of stereotypes that really shame people about the way that they care for themselves and the way that they approach their day-to-day living. And so I grew up always believing that not only was my body not good enough, but also it wasn't capable enough and that I did something wrong and I deserved this diagnosis that I had, which absolutely no one does. But it really allowed me to like think very poorly about my body, even outside of the typical going through puberty, learning about diet culture, learning about like trying to fit in with everyone else. So not only did I have that pressure, but I also had the pressure of living with a chronic disease from a very young age. And I developed a eating disorder in high school. I was manipulating my diabetes care. So I wasn't actually taking my life-saving medication because there was this myth that said this medication makes you gain weight. So I told myself, okay, well, if I don't take it, then I'm going to lose weight. But what it does is it builds a poison in your body called ketones. And for a non-diabetic, this is what people use sometimes to lose weight. But for someone who is diabetic, the ketones are poison and they're poisonous to us. And they start eating away at your lungs, at your liver, at your kidney. And that is essentially why people lose weight, but you're actually dying. People just don't know that that's what's happening. So I did that for many years. I was a dancer. My dance teacher was always telling me that I was too big to be a ballerina and I didn't fit the stereotype of a dancer. And so it was really easy between my diabetes, the dance community and the industry, and society essentially to hate myself. I was always, though, a very outgoing person. And so people really misunderstood my outgoing energy, my happiness and stuff as confidence. But I actually like really hated myself. And after high school, I ended up going to school. I studied physical and health education. And in that time, I wanted to open up a gym and be a really cool weight loss. Like saying this gives me the shivers, but I wanted to be a cool weight loss clinic for women on the beach where they could go and lose weight and gain confidence. But in my second year of school, I actually took a second program called Gender Equality and Social Justice. And in that program, I learned about things, and it's sometimes sad to say, but I learned about racism. I learned about sexism. I learned about privileges and inequalities. And it was in that program actually that I learned about diet culture and how we view fat bodies and how we talk about bodies in general. And so from that program, I ended up only taking one class because it was I had to fill in my program, but I ended up actually doing a complete degree in it because I was so interested. And that was the program, that was the turning point for me to realize that my confidence and my leadership in this world can't be based around helping people lose weight. And it can't be based around having people to feel like they feel better about themselves because of the way that their body looks. So in that program as well, I was studying a lot about the porn industry, and I was studying a lot of classes within how people saw themselves while learning through sex ed, through pornography. So the effects that it had on our brain and the effects that it had on our body image, watching pornography as the main source of sex education. Because I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but over here in Canada and the States, our sex education is slim to nothing. And if there is education, it's wear condom so you don't get pregnant, and don't have unsafe sex because you'll get chlamydia and die. Literally the epitome of like, people always laugh at the Mean Girls when they're like, oh, like that scene, that's literally what it's like though. It's so real. So for me, that's where I started learning about the base, like not the basics, but the really in-depth parts of my work that I do now. I went to Australia after that because I felt like the post-grad fuck up. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was so multi-talented. I was so like outgoing. Everyone was like, what's Erika? I was like the person that everyone's like, what's Erika gonna do? Like, it's gonna be something. She's gonna be a star for something. And I just didn't know. And I was chasing this dream of everyone else. And it was in that time that I really learned about my body, because I was in a bikini every single day. And I was like, well, fuck, if I'm going to enjoy my 1 year on a beach, I best enjoy seeing my devices on me, my medical devices. And I best enjoy having, you know, my, maybe my left labia hanging out a little bit because it's a little bit, you know, juicier than like, comfortable with myself, right? So it was here that I learned about my body image. But then after that, I realized how little body image and body confidence actually matters in the grand scheme of things. Because when you stop focusing only on your body, you realize that there's so many more things that you're capable of doing. But when you're so lasered in on believing that your worth is how you look, it's very difficult to believe bigger things for yourself. And it's very difficult to see how much confidence actually plays a role in many aspects of our life. So when I came back from Australia, I was working a job that I hated, but everyone was like, you would be great. So I was working as a preschool teacher. And oh, sorry, that was my computer there. But yeah, I was a preschool teacher, and I was helping folks, like the little kids that needed one-on-one support to get through their day. And I was, it's called enhanced teaching, and I loved it at first. But then I realized I just loved it because everyone for my whole life told me that I was amazing with kids, and that I was going to be a great teacher, and that I should do it. So I became very frustrated and very, not like depressed in the way of like, I don't know how to go on, but like every day felt so shit. Like I woke up and I was like, I fucking hate my job. And then I'd be at my job and I'm like, I fucking hate my job. And then I'd get home, I'd be like, I fucking hate my job. Like nothing about it felt good. So 2 years later, I decided to take the risk and start confidence coaching, because I had been showing people for 8 years my journey in confidence and teaching people and showing people my journey. I had the base that was already developed and the audience that was there that essentially had watched me go through this transformation. And everyone was like, help me, like do it. Like, I need to do what you're doing. Like, you're so inspiring. So I was like, okay, cool. I might as well go all in on this and actually be able to help people, not just message people on my DMs after work here, there, and everywhere. So that's how I got to where I am. And I started off as a confidence coach, and then I worked my way into sex coaching. There is a lot of shame around the topic of sex. And to be completely transparent, I had to be mentally ready to allow myself any backlash that I had, whether it was from society, whether it was from family, friends, my partner's family at the time. So I really had to mentally prepare for that. The day I actually became a sex coach and announced my program on Instagram completely took my page away of 10,000 organic followers. Gone. God. 8 years of growth just completely taken away. And it was in that moment that I realized that my sex coaching is going to be what pushes me into the future and is really going to be the focus of my confidence coaching, because I can talk about body confidence and liking your job and knowing your worth and everything like that. But that's only like 60% of what it means to be confident. The other half is so important. And that's when I realized that if we are shaming this huge side of us as a society and we're trying to silence it nonstop, how are we ever going to actually allow ourselves to push through, right? Like that's the information that people really need. So that's where I've gotten to now. And now I'm, you know, very well known for my sex and confidence coaching, and just being the coach that essentially works through inclusivity, works through accessibility, and recognizes that the way that we all see life is going to be different depending on the race that we are, the gender, the way that we present ourselves, our identity, and taking into consideration that there are some things outside of one's control that will determine how they see the world.
Amazing.
I love that whole story. I'm like, I could listen for hours. Rox and I have also, I mean, not that we are sex coaches or confidence coaches at all, but I think a lot of our followers as well as us can relate to your story in the sense of, I think a lot of people have gone through that like diet culture mentality where we all feel like we're going to be fitness trainers or like dietitians, and then learning about our bodies and diet culture and confidence and all of that is like leads you down this completely different path. And I wanted to ask a question with regard to like being shut down on Instagram. I think it's so difficult because being a sex and confidence coach, like you say, there's always going to be backlash from social media or from different religions or races or whatever the situation is. Like, how did you get back from that? Like, it's such a difficult thing to get through, number one, for having to have built that by yourself organically in this day and age. And number two, like to just still have the motivation and confidence to just be like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do and I have to get through this some way or another. Like, were there loopholes you had to take or?
Yeah, this is a great question for right now too, because I've actually gone through another shift that I'll talk about in a second. But the thing for me is like, I was devastated. I was so mad and I took it very personally. And the thing that I really had to realize was that this is not a personal attack on me. This is a personal attack. This is an attack on what I teach and what I preach. So that was like really helpful for me in the sense of moving forward. The other thing about me is that like I get very aroused by not following the rules and like being a little bit like sneaky in here and there. So for me to like get deleted, as much as I cried and like ate sausages with a spoon because I didn't even know what to do with my life, I was like, the first like thing I did was literally grab sausages out of the fridge and start eating it with a spoon because that made sense. But once I like finally came to like my senses a couple days later, I was like, this is kind of sexy. The fact that I spent 8 years growing my platform to 10,000 followers, and then Instagram saw me so much as a threat that they had to completely get rid of me with no warning. And then I was like, yeah, fuck this. I'm going to do it anyways. That to me was like the biggest act of my own confidence. And to be able to constantly keep going, it's like, it's not only for everyone else, but it's also for me. It's allowing myself to be like, okay, well, how confident are you actually? Right. And that was a huge piece for me to be like, you know what, I could have just given up. I could have just thrown in the towel, but instead I allowed myself to be like, no, you know what, like, let's find ways. Now, I was also blacklisted. So after that, I made my new profile. And because I used the same name, I just added a 2 at the end. They noticed it was me. So they sent me an email saying like, oh, you're on the blacklist. You can't use hashtags, locations. You can't message people. You can't reach out. Everyone has to come to you for the next 6 months and we'll reevaluate if you've been not violating the community guidelines.
Oh my God.
So that was in itself was a hurdle because I couldn't reach out to any of my old followers being like, hey, like I'm still here. So that was the first one. But again, it allowed me to just get really, really creative and it pushed me to be more bold with my content. So people felt the urge to share it. People felt more inclined to like pass it along. And then for the last 2 years, it's just been really learning like the language that I can and can't use. Now, the last 4 months for me has been extremely difficult. I don't know if I have someone or a group of people or if it's TikTok and Instagram, but my shit has been getting deleted like left, right, and center to a point where I don't, like I said, I don't know what's going on because it's not on anything that deserves to be deleted, right? Like there are some things that I'm like, okay, like that is a little bit like, yes, if you read the guidelines, that's outside the guidelines. Mine was like, here's how to give yourself a self massage so you can connect with your body. And they're like, serious pornography. And I was like, okay, what the fuck? So in the last week, literally a week today, to this exact moment that we're talking, I decided to move all my content off of Instagram and TikTok, and I've moved over to OnlyFans. And it was hard because I constantly wanted to fight these apps, right? I know that removing my voice from these apps is not necessarily the fight that most people would say, but we have to also understand too that these apps make money from us being there. And if more folks like me and more people are like, fuck this, I'm not supporting this, like this is unfair, this is unequal, maybe they will realize that they are going to lose some business by not allowing people to talk about these very important topics. And I think the biggest hurdle for many sex educators, but especially sex workers who are so wrongfully treated on these apps, is allowing ourselves to not see them as a threat and recognizing that there is so much more to sex and sexuality than just showing genitals and feeling sexy in the self and like twerking or posting a sexy photo, right? A lot of the times the people that are being silenced are folks that are really helping change the narrative around this topic. And that's the sad thing about it. So for me, like I was jumping the hurdles for the last 2 years, and I just have gotten to a point where I'm like, I'm not going to play your fucking game anymore. Like, I feel like Instagram and TikTok are the biggest fuck boys in my life right now. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I've tried fucking pleasing you. I don't talk about sex and sexuality, which is, again, as I mentioned earlier, such a big part of confidence. I've like completely left that out of my content, and I still was getting reported. So I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I would much rather have to restart and learn a new platform and work on literally convincing people that it's going to be worth coming over than play by their rules, because their rules are so inadequate and they're so back and forth between certain creators. Like some people can do some things and some can't do the others. And my way of jumping over that hurdle is to just not even give them my attention anymore. So I'll still be there. I'm still going to like use it as my place to brand myself. But as far as like it goes for sex educators and stuff, if anyone's listening that's having the same problem as me, I would strongly advise you to allow yourself to release the chokehold that you have on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, which is where we spend most of our time and what we know, and allow yourself to trust your gut and know that you are welcome in other spaces and there's other spaces available for you. And it will be difficult and you'll have to completely learn your business from scratch, but our voices are so important, and sex education and sexuality and the liberation of sexual women is so needed that we can't just stop talking about it. We just have to talk about it in other spaces where it's allowed to be heard.
Amazing. I think it's so interesting that you are moving over to OnlyFans, because I mean, for a while there's been such a stigma about OnlyFans that it's like strictly porn, like you can only have an account if you like take videos of you and your partner, whatever, doing the funky in your room, whatever. And only recently I realized that it's not really only that, it's just a platform where people pay to get specific content that's like uncensored, if that makes sense.
Totally. And it's funny, like I said, this is very ironic that this is where the conversation is going, because I actually went live this morning talking to my audience being like, y'all are really struggling with some internalized whorephobia and some internalized sexism, because I chose to go on OnlyFans for this exact reason, because people, one, are very uncomfortable paying for sex or the act of sex and the act of sex education. We have become so accustomed to pornography for free, and we are so accustomed to indulging in bodies for free with no repercussion, that when someone now is saying, hey, I'm going to charge people for you to see my naked body, and let's just name it spades for spades, women are so fucking beat down on. Oh, well, I can go get nudes anywhere else. Cool, go do it. That's unethical. You'll probably make that person feel like shit. There's likely a lack of trust there. But sure, if you want to be a piece of shit, go do it. And so I'm noticing, even just in the last week announcing that I'll be leaving, that people are not coming over because it's OnlyFans and it's so closely connected to so much shame, right? We shame not only the creators and the girls, and again, let's just name it spade for spade, the women who are charging people and using it, but we're also shaming the act of even being on it as a user, which just truly goes to show how much whorephobia and how much shame we have attached to the topic of sex, that we don't even feel comfortable paying $10 a month to receive sex education or to indulge in someone's sexual energy, which is so sacred and so beautiful in and itself. And it's very interesting too, because there are other platforms like Patreon, and you can do a lot more of, there's a lot more other platforms that you can have people pay for your content, but and those ones are not seen as the sex one. But what happened is, because OnlyFans blew up during the pandemic because so many sex workers were able to move their work outside of the clubs and off of the streets and into a safer area, that all of a sudden now people are like, oh, OnlyFans, it's just a pornography site. But it was created 2 years ago for folks who do have large followings, who wish to get compensated for their content, and rightfully so. We've become so used to people consuming for free, and everyone's just so used to indulging, and we just fucking scroll and scroll and scroll, that it's like, when we ask for money, people are like, what? But content creators deserve to get paid for their time. And I think the rise of OnlyFans, unfortunately, yes, has been made fun of, again, because the mass majority of users are women. So let's just like connect the sexism to that, because there is a huge reason why OnlyFans are girls and people are being shit on for using it versus other platforms, but also to just the act of like actually learning how to become smart consumers, right? We can scroll for 8 hours a day and people don't fucking consume anything. Or you can go onto another platform, actively leave the app, sign in, consume one post for 5 minutes, and truly grow in your heart and truly grow who you are. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to go over to OnlyFans, is because I'm tired of people shaming the app, really, because it's just whorephobia at the end of the day. It's just sexism at the end of the day. And I want people to get comfortable with paying for the energy that people are putting out, because again, this free exchange, it's not doing anything for your soul. It's just filling your fucking brain with words, really.
I love that you bring up the free exchange, because I'm like, I feel like just in general, women are so judgmental, and it is. I mean, women are so judgmental of women, other women. Like, I think guys are way more accepting of what women do than what women are. And I don't know if it's so much, I think jealousy is the wrong word to use, but I think there's just also this like little thing inside women that see women that are using OnlyFans that would never be able to have the confidence, like you speak about, to be able to use an app like that, that makes that whole phobia so much worse, because you automatically put this whole label, as disgusting as it is, on someone that's like used images of themselves or content of themselves to generate income. But you have women every single day that are sending nudes or sending underwear shots or whatever it is to guys or to girls, whatever the situation is. And that stuff is getting saved. And I think like subconsciously, you always know that that person can do whatever they want with that stuff, and they have control over you, where you sign up for an OnlyFans account or you do what you do with sex education and you're making an income, and you're kind of putting that out there with the label of like, you paid for it, like do whatever you want with it. Like, I'm giving you the permission to do so. But if you're sending these free things backwards and forwards, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like someone is always having like this control over you in your mind.
There is like a huge element of control. There's also a huge element of trust. And, you know, on OnlyFans, like you do sign up, and you like, as a creator, again, for anyone listening that might be interested, I'll share this with you. When you sign up, you do sign the terms of conditions, which essentially says like that they're not responsible for anyone screen recording your content and putting it elsewhere and sharing it. So they've really like tried to be like, listen, like this is your responsibility. We'll try to protect you. You do have rights as an individual. In most parts of the world, you do have rights for that. It is a crime to share other people's nudes. But yeah, it's really interesting, because the when we are like sharing nudes and expressing ourselves that way, it is very normalized now, and as it should be, in my personal opinion, because not only are we in COVID times where you can't just be meeting up with people and indulging in each other's presence, but also it allows people to, you know, connect in a different way. I think through our phones is the way that life is going. Like, we all spend time on our phones. So to shame people for sending nudes and for like that, it's like, why? Because this is where we all hang out. But I do believe that it takes a very strict level of trust to do so, and allowing yourself to get money or get some type of compensation for that is truly a safer exchange of energy, right? Because for me, if I'm like, okay, if I'm sending you a nude right now, you two a nude, I feel like I'm giving a little bit more than you are, because I'm putting my naked self out there. You have all you're giving me is trust, which let's be real, very difficult nowadays to completely have that trust. And that's not to say that I hate on humans, but we don't respect people the way that we used to. So I'm giving you this beautiful piece of me, this very vulnerable, raw piece of me, and all you're giving me is trust. So at least with OnlyFans, I'm like encouraging people, like, obviously know your safety and know what could happen, but allow yourself to charge for that, because there is more of that respect when there is some type of compensation and energy exchange, whether it is them paying a couple dollars, whether it's them paying many dollars. But when you have that, it does feel a little bit more like, I feel better about it. Like, I feel sexier about it too, being like, yeah, you know what? Like, I deserve to be compensated. And let's just, like, half the time I send nudes for free, the responses are shit, okay? So like, the guy's like, well, yeah, well, we'll hype you the fuck up. No, you won't. You literally say you want to slap your thick dick on my ass. Like, that's not gonna make me, like, that's not an equal exchange. That's not an equal exchange. Like, that comment doesn't go to my soul. That comment doesn't fucking lift me up as a human. It just makes me be like, okay, like, slap your fucking piece of meat on my ass. I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? So I do feel like there is that. And it's interesting to the point about, you know, women hating on other women. It's so, there's so much internalized misogyny, and there's so much internalized hate for women. And there is a level of jealousy. There is a level of, you know, frustration as well. And I used to be really mad because people come to my page, and I'm not just saying this, but people literally once a week will be like, I hate following you because I just fucking hate how happy you are. I hate it. But they'll say, but I stay because I know that I want that. And I know that my hate towards you is because I hate myself so much that I can't live like you. And it makes me sad, to be completely honest, because I'm like, man, like, the fact that you hate me because I'm living my life when I am giving you for $10 a month an opportunity to live your life like me. It's like, like I said, I used to be mad at these other women. I used to be like, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, you're a piece of shit. But now I'm like, no, like, we can't be mad because we were born and conditioned to believe that we are at competition with each other. We were raised to believe that you and I will never be able to succeed at the same time. It's one or the other. So pick and choose, and the first one at the top wins, rather than I'm going to get to my top. Y'all are going to come and get to your top in a couple of years, and we'll see each other there. And that's that, right? We were never told that situation. It's always the hot person in school could only date one popular person. Who's it gonna be? Right? Like the top of the business can only hire one manager. Who's it gonna be? It's always like, are you gonna get to the top? Are you gonna get to the top? Rather than, we can all be at the top, just all of our tops are gonna look different, and we're gonna get there at different times, but it doesn't mean that it's any different. But we just, you know, the world makes money when women hate on women. And that's why I continue to do what I do, because when we hate, we spend money on fucking makeup and stupid ass shit to make ourselves feel better. We go and do stupid ass shit because we're trying to get to the top. We try to lose weight. We try to get bigger boobs, bigger butts, whatever it is. And when we spend money, when women spend money, which is, you know, 70% lower than what a man makes, when we spend that money, it's going right to the industries that are literally monetizing off of us hating ourselves. That's fucked to me. So
that's
for me, I'm like,
100% true.
Right? I'm like, when I buy makeup, the beauty industry gets my dollar. The only reason the beauty industry really exists is to make you feel bad about yourself. So you're constantly purchasing. So I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going to do that. So when you, and I learned this a lot through diet culture too, like the allowance of to stop dieting, the allowance to let your body exist as is, loving on other women, not giving a fuck about what everyone else is doing, not only pulls the money from the industries, but it also like replaces that. All that money gets to stay in you, all that energy exchange gets to stay in you, and all that power gets to come back into you. And that's how we feel confident. You don't feel confident by looking a certain way. You feel confident knowing that that bitch can look like that, and that little cutie over there can look like that, and she can be making $100 million a year, and she can be making $50 a fucking year. And there's space for everyone, and it's not one's better than the other.
I love that.
I'm actually so sad that you're moving from Instagram, because I've been following you religiously since I found out about you through Kylie. And like when you said that one girl said that she hates you because you're always so happy, and so sad, because that's the reason I fucking love your stories. Like as soon as I see them come on, I'm like, yeah, she's gonna get me pumped for today. Like you're always so happy, so confident. And one of the questions I actually wanted to ask you, especially because you come across so natural and so authentic and so confident on your stories, on your feed, on your social media. Like, how do you, for someone who doesn't have the confidence, how do you build that confidence to now, let's say you're building a brand or you're building whatever you're building, to come onto social media and come across authentic with confidence and basically not give a fuck about what anyone thinks about you?
Yeah, no, totally. So I practice my in-person life the exact same way that I approach my online. So for example, every morning I'm in my stories being like, good morning, little titty bitches, big bitches, we're on our day. Like, you're fabulous, you're great. I'm gonna go fuck some shit up, and so are you. Let me tell you, when I say that, when I walk outside of the door to go to Starbucks to get my coffee, guess how I'm greeting my barista? Good morning. How are you? Are you having a good day today? Do you have any new drinks? I love your outfit. It's the exact same. And the reason being is because I allow myself to be myself everywhere. And the more I practice it, the more authentic it becomes. Right? So when I coach my clients on how to show up authentically, I say, you got to fucking show up authentically in your life too, right? It carries over. And something that I really pride myself on in my brand is showing up in the good and the bad, and allowing myself to know that I can do that without people judging me or thinking that I'm a bad coach. I am the first person that's like, I'm struggling with this, or I had a problem with that, or I don't feel confident in this right now, because not only does it make me comfortable claiming my own, struggles and my own journey, but it also then allows me to know that other people are going to be going through the same thing too. I don't have to shame myself about it. And then it encourages others to do the same. So when it comes to, showing up online and being my funny self and everything like that, that is from practicing being my authentic self in person as well. And it really has allowed me to know that no matter who I meet, no matter what podcast episode I get on, no matter what TV show I'm going to end up on in 2 years, everyone will know what it means to be Erika and what I represent, because I allow myself to exist in all aspects of my life in the exact same way. I get on dating apps, y'all, and my dating apps are like, hey, I'm a sex and confidence coach. If you don't like Black Lives Matter, or if you think trans folks don't deserve human rights, don't even swipe on me. I fucking hate you. You're a piece of shit. I love napping. I love coffee. I'm super loud. I love taking Instagram photos. So I definitely need an Instagram boyfriend. Like, true story, my whole bio is so fucking like full of it. My photos are just everything. And I literally just put it out there for the world. And for me, there are some pieces that you can keep private. Like, not everyone knows everything. But when I say put everything out there, I just mean like all the pieces of what it means to be Erika is presented. And I allow people to know that, so that they can choose if they want to be a part of my life or not. They can literally say, okay, you know what? This bitch is way too fucking outgoing for me. I'm going to swipe on her, right? Whereas if I was only like confidence and sex coach, equal lives matter, DM, like, can't wait to try. I can't even like come up with a fucking like a small, because I'm not used to it. Yeah. But if I just put like a couple things, then I have to open my heart to all these people and potentially then have these tough conversations. Get to know everyone and put everything out there as I go. And that, to me, that can be a waste of time, because I don't want to sit in a conversation with someone for 45 minutes to find out that they are a fucking Donald Trump supporter. I can, that's 45 minutes that I could be masturbating, that I could be taking notes, that I could be like singing and dancing and making TikToks. Like, fuck, man, 45 minutes is like a big deal, right? So for me, I just put it all out there on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere I go. And if people are attracted to me, then that's the people that I want to fuck with, right? I have the best friendships and the best people and the best clients because I just fuck with it. I'll go on my lives crying. I'll like tell people that, like, I got ghosted. I'll tell people that I was like fucking addicted to this one guy because his dicknesia was like so fucking mesmerizing that I'm cool with admitting it because it allows people to be like, yeah, I was addicted to a dick once too. Or like, oh, I was addicted to like someone's like, you know, vagina once. Like, I get it. So that, to answer your question, to allow yourself to show up in one area of your life, you have to allow yourself to be authentic in another, and work on it, right? Like if it means you were always ashamed of your, you know, of your laugh, let's just say maybe you don't like your laugh, start laughing in public more, right? Call your friends and laugh on the phone there. Record yourself laughing and listen to it so that it becomes normal to you. It doesn't always have to be these big astronomical steps. Sometimes it's just actually familiarizing yourself more and more with the things that we are so ashamed of.
I love that you said like your basic tip for confidence is being authentic, because I think we're so preconditioned to become what we think other people want us to be that we completely lose who we are. And in becoming this person that we aren't are, it becomes so hard to come across on social media as a certain way or a certain thing, because you're not being real to yourself. So you're always making up who you are, what you like, blah, blah, blah. So I love that authenticity is your key to confidence. And then obviously also the practicing, because I know with me, I hated the sound of my voice when I heard it back on a voice message or whatever. And now that I listen to it all the time, like it doesn't bother me at all. So it's just like practice and getting over those like fears and insecurities that you may have.
Totally. And I tell my clients this for absolutely anything in their life, whether, you know, it's usually in relation to their body, but it can be applied to anything. But the more you allow yourself to see something, the less shocking it becomes, right? So the first time you see your vagina, let's just say, okay, you open your legs and you're like, oh, I've never looked at my vagina before. Like I'm a little bit uncomfortable. And then you look at your vagina every day for 1 minute, just standing there, like being like, what's that, girl? Like spreading it. Sometimes you might want to put your fingers in it. Sometimes you might want to like play around with it. And then the 10th time you do it, it's like, that's just my vagina. That's just like parts of my labia. That's just parts of my vulva, like whatever, right? So it's the same with our bodies. When we don't look in the mirror because we hate our reflection so much, guess what? When you walk past that window at Target when you're shopping, you're going to have a little bit of a panic attack because you've alienated yourself from your skeleton and from your authentic self, right? So I always tell my clients, whether it's your bank account, this might trigger some people, your bank account, your dating apps, your laundry, your clothes, your whatever the fuck it is, when you actually allow yourself to just look at it constantly, it's far less scary because it's familiar. You know what you're going to see, right? Every day I stare at myself in the mirror and I'm like, there's my nice little treasure trail. There's my cute little like fat pussy that hangs out. Like I love my little like thing. I got my fupa going on. I got my round fucking peachy ass that's bigger than the freaking CN Tower here in Toronto. I got my little cellulite, you know, my kneecaps are a little bit dry, but I know that. So I'm not like, every morning, I'm just like, your tits, you saw them 5 hours yesterday because you stared at yourself, you little freak, for 5 hours straight. You don't look the same, right? Like it's just like now I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like I know all the pieces of me so that if anyone tries to, whether it's my body or not. So when people, you know, try to judge me for something, I'm like, you don't think I fucking know that? They're like, oh, your nipples are showing. I'm like, yes, on purpose. They're pierced and they're hard on purpose when I show up. Guess what? Because that's what I like to look at. I see them all day. I walk around with these junks on my chest every day. I know what they look like. You know, people are like, oh, like you have acne. Yes, I do get acne. Okay, I can show you my pimples. You want to see some videos of me popping them? Because I'll send them to you for $5.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah, like why are you trying to shame me? I fucking know this shit, right? So it actually too helps your confidence when you become familiar with yourself, because you don't get defensive when people try to call you out. When people call me out and they're like, oh, like, you know, like I was really struggling with my parents for a while when I first became a sex coach, because like my parents were like, where the fuck did this come from? Like I was like a little angel baby, okay? And you know, so when people were like, oh, your parents must be real proud. Bitch, I fucking cried no matter what troll it was, whether it was a 12-year-old little boy or it was a 97-year-old woman, I would cry because I knew that there was some truth to that and I wasn't healing from recognizing it. Now, I mean, my relationship with my parents is better, but when I finally healed the fact that my parents didn't really appreciate this side of me, when people are like, oh, your parents must be proud, I'm like, nah, they're not really, to be completely honest, right? It didn't hurt as much. When people say like, oh, like, you're really annoying. Bitch, trust me. I have to listen to my own podcast 7 times when I'm editing it. You don't have to tell me I'm annoying. I know I'm annoying. My voice is literally haunts people in their sleep. I know because it haunts me in my sleep too. Don't worry about it. You know, like it just gets so much easier to accept criticism because you learn to not give a fuck about it.
We literally spoke about this in our last podcast. Honestly, in our last podcast, we just said to people, like, if you claim who you are, you cannot get defensive, and there cannot be an argument with someone, because someone will tell you how you are and you can literally be like, yep, 100%.
I fucking know. Yeah, like when people are like, girl, you need to like get your emotions in check. I'm like, trust me, girl, I know. I'll be like, I know. Oh my gosh, I'm literally all over the place. And people are like, oh, yeah,
okay.
Like, okay, yeah, troll, I am good. Thank you. Like,
thanks for checking in. Yeah.
I always say like self-awareness is so nice, because especially if you struggle with people telling you how to live your life, because I was that person a couple of years ago. I really was struggling with owning my authentic self and people like saying things, and I was still taking it to heart because I knew there was some truth in it. When people said, oh, you're or you're not, it wasn't outgoing. It was, oh, you're too loud. Excuse me, you're too loud, you're too bold, you're too everything. I still felt a little bit of truth to that. So it was like, oh, now I'm like, you can literally tell me that I'm the shittiest person ever, and it wouldn't even bother me because I know I've done shitty shit in my life. Like, I know, right? Or I also will be like, no, I'm not, but you just think that because you think you know who I am, but I know who I am, so it doesn't matter. I love when it aligns to like how you guys were saying how that was in your last podcast. Like it is such an important message for people to know and really actually truly take to heart.
Yeah, I think the key to confidence and happiness is acceptance.
Always.
Yeah, and not only of yourself, but of others too. And one of my favorite things that I teach my clients is acceptance is the act of consent. So it's allowing yourself to consent to an offering that is welcoming into your life. It's not necessarily fair. It doesn't mean that you have to like it, but you are consenting to the fact that it is there, and you are consenting to the fact that it exists. And then you get to decide what you do with that. The last week, like before I decided to move all myself onto OnlyFans, fuck bitches, I was crying nonstop. Like I was not accepting it whatsoever. I was like, I hate the ads and it's so unfair. Like I was having such a hard time. But then I was like, no, bitch, acceptance is not thinking, oh, this is fair and they're winning. It's allowing myself to be like, you know what, this is just the reality. So I either throw in the towel and figure something else out, or I fight this shit. I take the risk. I potentially ruin my business because it could happen. That's a reality. But I was like, no, fuck it. I'm going to accept the fact that this is happening. I'm going to accept that people are going to recognize the worth and eventually start trickling over. And yeah, it's going great, you know?
I think we have like a few questions that we wrote down that we want to ask you.
Yes. Ask. I love that.
Okay. I mean, these are more sex-oriented questions.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's spice it up a little bit.
So, I mean, we were just chatting before we came on with you and just brainstormed a few questions, but the one question I wanted to ask was like the female orgasm and pleasure zones, because I know there's so much like misconception that there's only one way to get pleasure, and like, could you elaborate more on that stuff?
So I love talking about pleasure because it's so individual to each person. So the thing is pleasure is a learned pathway in our head. And so for many of us, the early years of pleasure and what we know is what we stick to. So if you started your own self-pleasure, or maybe you were pleasuring with a partner when you were younger, maybe in your teens or something, if you know that you can receive pleasure that way, you likely are attached to that method, right? Because our brain says, put the vibrator on your clitoris at a 42-degree angle, obtuse angle to the right, and spread your leg. Like, you know, like we all have that fucking position. We all have the position, right? So if we know that that's how we can get it, we are, as humans, we love certainty. We don't love the unknown. And so for pleasure, it's very easy to get stuck in this is what works, so this is what I'm going to do. But the cool thing about it is that when you allow yourself to explore other avenues, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely ditch the other way, but it might allow you to experience the journey in a different realm. So even if you end up finishing or going back to what usually works, allowing yourself to discover different parts of your body will make the journey different, which in turn will feel different for you in general. So one of my favorite things to teach my clients is finding pleasure outside of the genitals and outside of the breast, because there's spaces on your body called erogenous zones. And these are spaces that you can feel a lot of sensation in that are not necessarily sexually brought on. So even like places behind your knee, everyone will have a different like sensitive zone, but inside of your thighs, in your inner arms, behind your ear, your neck, your tummy, these are areas that actually bring out a lot of pleasure without people noticing. And it's actually a really great way to lead into your pleasure because it allows you to connect to different parts of your body in a safe way as well. So if you are someone that's listening right now and you are nervous to try different realms of pleasure because you've tried one thing and it works for you and that's what you're comfortable with, don't think about having to double penetrate your ass and your vagina at the same time. If you want to, it's really fun and I can teach you how, but don't think that you have to go and all of a sudden, penetrate every single hole in order to receive a different way. Allow yourself to explore different parts of your body, massage different parts, put feathers and lights and heat, like play with different elements and allow yourself to know that because you were told and taught that our genitals are for pleasure or for reproduction doesn't mean that other parts of our body can't receive pleasure as well. And, sometimes that exploration can be a bit nerve-wracking, but the best way to find other ways of pleasure is to explore within your boundaries, but also pushing them a little bit as well and allowing yourself to just, connect to your body, which for many of us have a difficult time, especially if you don't love your body, but finding pleasure outside of your genitals also can really help you connect in a positive way to your body in a way that you probably didn't know could exist.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that scene in 40 Days and 40 Nights where he tickles her with the feather.
Yeah. This is the thing. It's so funny because some of my clients will be like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I need to go get like I said, these like double penetrated dildos? I'm like, you totally can. But you can also, put a silk nightie on instead of cotton and see how silk feels against your breasts and see how silk feels against your skin versus linen or versus cotton. You can, take an ice cube and trickle it on your body and see what senses come from that. Or you can also safely drip, wax oils and body wax on your body and see how that feels. You can hold yourself really tight or ask people to hold your body like very, very tightly. And you can also ask people to graze their fingers against you or graze your own fingers against you and see how that feels. So we really love to complicate. Mm-hmm. We love to complicate pleasure. And I think it comes down to people being like, oh, you shouldn't be experiencing it. Like it has to be this very intense way, but orgasms and like I was on a call the other week with my fitness instructor and we were stretching through the hips and we were doing this movement. And then she was like, oh, and she was like, she had an orgasm while we were stretching, but because she was so in tune with her body and the movement of her hips very much brought her that like sensual flow, she literally had an orgasm while she was teaching a fitness class. And, for anyone that's like, I've never even had an orgasm fucking myself, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, maybe you need to work on pleasure outside of the sexual act of it and really connect with your body, because those pieces are what allow you to embody the pleasure even more because you're comfortable with when it happens, right? If she wasn't comfortable with her body, when she was feeling that pleasure stretching, she probably wouldn't have allowed her body to relax and to breathe through her orgasm and breathe through what she was feeling.
So what would you advise for ladies? I know for some people, like it's easy for us to sit and have a conversation about it, but there's some girls or women in general that get so uncomfortable with even the conversation of like you were speaking about even putting an ice cube on their body. There's some women that like feel so embarrassed or like so shut off that they can't even get through that like mental part of even thinking about doing that, let alone like actually doing it. And I know that you say it's obviously linked to confidence and like to accepting your body, but what would be your advice to someone who is like really an introvert, or someone that's like really just never experienced anything like this in their life and they have zero idea where to start?
And also, before you answer, sorry, the same kind of thing, but a lot of women also find it like embarrassing or like weird to voice to their partners what they like and what they want to, like if they want to try something new, like they're just too scared. So how would you also, what advice would you give them to feel more comfortable speaking to their partners about these things?
So my first piece of advice would be to practice mirror work. So mirror work is essentially getting comfortable with seeing yourself. Now, if you are very uncomfortable in your body, I would suggest even just putting the mirror on your shoulder or on your arms and working through. The goal essentially would be to allow yourself to learn how to stand in front of a mirror and bask in your beautifulness and bask in all parts of you and go from there. But if you are very nervous about your body, it's going to be very difficult to connect in a sexual way. And that's not to say that you won't be able to, but when you are so ashamed of your body, it's very difficult to allow your body to, or allow yourself to trust your body during the act of pleasure. There are lots of things that can happen. So mirror work is number one. Start with a part of your body that you are comfortable with and work your way up. The second part of mirror work would be like really, like I said earlier, but watching and looking at your genitals. I have one of those makeup mirrors that like kind of sits on your desk, and I keep it at a level where I can always just see my vagina when I'm doing my makeup. And I just stare at it, and I'll like sometimes like pull it open while I'm doing my makeup, and then I'll go back to doing my makeup. And it really just allows you to get comfortable with it for yourself, because we talk about, you know, we want to talk about partners and expressing that. If you can't allow your brain to say, I think I want to feel cold on my skin right now, it's going to be very difficult to allow someone else to do that. So you have to get really comfortable with yourself, which leads me to my next point would be self-pleasure. And self-pleasure often, whether it is a sexual self-pleasure or something else. So if you are struggling with sexual self-pleasure, I want you to think through the lens of sensuality, which is connecting to your senses. So we have touch, taste, sight, sound, and smell. So really asking yourself, where do you receive pleasure in those realms? For example, do you like florally perfume, or do you like more of a tobacco perfume? Do you like the smell of candles, or do you like essential oils? Do you like the way cotton feels on you, or do you like the way linen feels on you? Right? And asking yourself how you feel pleasure through all that. Are there foods that make you feel pleasure, right? This way you can connect to your body in a non-sexual way. So if there is any fears, you're still allowing yourself to get comfortable with receiving pleasure. It just might not be through the lens of sexuality, but rather sensuality. Listening to music, moving your hips around a bit, these types of things can really connect and make you comfortable with your body, so that if you do decide to self-pleasure in a sexual way, you can allow yourself to indulge in that, and you can start working through any shame that might be being held there. But listen, like if you are someone that like literally cannot even just picture yourself doing this, it's okay to also get help. And there's some amazing sex therapists I don't know about in South America, or sorry, South Africa. But, over here, like in the Americas, there are tons of sex therapists and sex coaches that can really help you work through that shame. But a lot of the time there is a blockage of either body shame or sex shame that needs to be worked through in order for you to completely dive in. But yeah, the first one would be mirror work. The second one is self-pleasure. The third step, which is in relation to talking to your partners and stuff, learn how to communicate outside of the bedroom first and really work on that. Because oftentimes when it comes to asking for things, we get so ashamed because one, we're told that we shouldn't ask for anything. Two, we're told that we shouldn't know what we want. So if we're like, yeah, I want you to choke me, they're like, a woman who knows, like, what? Like, no, you're not supposed to know that, but we do. Right? So learning how to communicate outside of the bedroom is going to be very important, so that when you get into the bedroom, it's easier. The reason being is because the intimacy level of having a conversation in the bedroom or about sex is very deep. So if you need to have a conversation about bedroom stuff, I actually advise people to have it before they even get into the bedroom. There's a lot of anxieties that come when it comes to sex. So if you are anxious and you're starting to hook up, and then you're like, fuck, okay, now I got to tell him that how he's pleasuring me or how she's pleasuring me is not how I like it. Whew, when you're in that moment, we are so attached, our egos are so attached to sex. So if you tell someone that they're not doing something the way that you want, even if you're like, hey, I like it this way because I know, because I play with myself this way, they're going to take it as, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it right. And then it can cause a lot of frustrations between the two of you. So I tell my clients to have the conversation at the grocery store, have the conversation while they're making dinner, while they're drinking coffee, while they're putting away the kids' toys, normalizing the conversation outside of the bedroom so that it's not brought up in such a sensitive time. It's brought up in a time where you are already bonding and doing something together and really depending on each other's support, so that the energy that is already being existent within that moment is an equal give and take.
So I think that kind of links to answering the question that one of our followers was asking, because she had a question saying that she likes the lights off and he likes the lights on, or vice versa. I had no idea which way it goes. And how do they compromise? So would you say, like you're saying now, have the conversation outside of the bedroom just to like alleviate pressure?
Yeah, but hey, like the best thing about lights is that one of you can wear blindfolds. So not only is it super sexy, it's also a win-win. So I give this tip for my clients that have really hard time with body image and they don't want to be seen. And I'm like, listen, $2 at the dollar store, you can get yourself a sexy little eye mask. You can put it on yourself, or you can sexually give it to your partner. You can be all sexy and sultry about it. And then you can ride the fucking till the cows come home because you're not worried about how you look. And also too, the use of blindfolds and the use of, removing one of the senses makes you tap into the other one. So we talk about sensuality, we talk about spicing things up. Taking away sight when sex is very visual makes them focus in on their body, the scent, the smells, the energy that's there. And it can actually be very exciting. And then you also win because you're not comfortable. You're allowing yourself to be in a more comfortable position. And it's a win-win. So anyone that doesn't like the lights on, try doing blindfolds. The other thing that is so easy, this is like my favorite tip, is playing with like salt lamps and candles, because it gives the light there. But because it's a different light, it's going to create silhouettes rather than like if you're like having sex at 6 a.m. and the sun's shining on you like you're Jesus. You're like, humping and bumping and grinding, and you can see every little tiny follicle in your asshole. Like that's the different story, right? So allowing yourself like to put candles on. I have LED lights on my bed, and it literally makes me feel like these. Like, I'm like, no one can fucking touch me when my red LED lights are on. And like my brain goes to very fucked up places, very sexy, fucked up places when they're on, because I'm like, I'm not worried about my body. I have mirrors all around me because I love watching myself get fucked. Like I'm like, yep, fuck me like this, eat my pussy like this. Like I'm gonna watch. But the lights in itself make it super sultry. It's still lighting so you can still see each other, but it's not as, like I said, flashlight in the asshole, spreading it apart, seeing it in your sphincter. So
love that.
Salt lamps are super sexy. A lot of people like candles, like light a couple candles around, LED lights. I have this new one from Amazon. And it has like a star, it's a projector, and it projects starlights into
That's
the
cute.
Oh, nice.
I love that.
So I literally put it on. I sent a new, I bought a new big mirror. I put it on. I would spread my legs. I took a picture of my full pussy, and I was like, I sent it to a couple people, but I was like, get ready. I was like, get ready. I was like, I don't know who the fuck's gonna fuck me in this verse, because I'm not having sex right now. I'm on like a dating hiatus, but I was like, I don't know who's gonna be the lucky one, but y'all better start lining up because this is a fucking vibe.
This is special.
Oh yeah, I'm like, who's gonna fuck me under the stars? The artificial stars, but regardless,
in my bedroom. Yeah.
In my bedroom with the mirrors watching, and all like that is so hot, and it's so easy, right? It was like I know this is a privilege, but it's $40, and now I've created not only a super fun environment and mood for me, but it's different and it's exciting, and it can allow me to embody a different emotion than if I just like keep the lights on, which I like doing because I'm like, I want you to see it all. But I also know that it took me a really long time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wanted to also ask, because I'm so interested how you brought up the 5 senses when it comes to pleasure as well, because you don't really think about that. And one of our followers actually asked, how do you get out of your head? Because for her, she finds that she's focusing so much on feeling pleasure to feel pleasure that it's just exhausting at the end of the day.
Literally exhausting.
It's
That's
exhausting.
the word. Yeah.
Yeah. So to allow yourself to get out of your head, there's a couple things you can do. Physically remove any distraction. So if you are a mom and you have laundry everywhere, or maybe like you're like me and your laundry's everywhere, and your head is instantly in the state of I need to get shit done, guess what? You're gonna be getting pounded out, and all you're gonna see is the fucking laundry sitting in the corner. So guess where your head's gonna go? It's gonna go there, not to your body, right? And so even removing things like that, tidying up your space a bit, removing your phone. For me, I am a workaholic, and if I see my phone go off, it's either my diabetes machine alerting me, which instantly pulls me out of my head, or it's something to do with work. So I know to leave my phone, put my little player on, put my mic on, leave my phone in the washroom so I don't go and constantly search for it. But the other thing too is when you are constantly like thinking about other things, pull yourself back to the now and ask yourself what you can see for each one of these senses. So what do you hear? What do you smell? What is the sight that you see? What are you touching? What do you feel? And just allowing yourself to work through those 5 questions can sometimes bring you back into the moment if your head is wandering. The other thing too, if your head is constantly wandering, ask yourself why. What is the disconnect? Because oftentimes we're like, oh, like I can't get out of my head, but it's not just like, oh, because the laundry's not done. There is a disconnect. Is it shame? Are you judging yourself? Are you feeling disconnected from your body? Is there a sense of embarrassment? Is there a sense of lack of trust? There's something deeper that's going on than just, like I said, oh, the to-do list is very long, which is fair. It can be. And there can be a lot of anxieties that come with sex and pleasure and make your head go everywhere else. But again, it all comes down to what is stopping you from allowing yourself to receive that pleasure? What is holding you back from truly enjoying in that moment? That is the question that you have to ask yourself.
That's a good
I love
answer.
that.
It ain't a nice one. Usually people are like, oh, I realized I don't like my husband. I'm like, oh, well, we got to deal with that. Or like, oh, I realized I'm totally fucking the wrong gender. I'm like, yep, we got to deal with that, right? Like sometimes the questions, that question can be very deep. Sometimes it's just as simple as, oh, like I grew up with a conservative parent who constantly said that like sex is bad. So whenever I'm having it, I am embodying that I'm a bad person. That, okay, we can work through. But sometimes it is like, wow, okay, I'm having sex with the wrong person. I don't love my partner anymore. We're disconnected. I feel like he doesn't trust me. Like sometimes that heavy shit does come up.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think that,
and everyone's like, really? Like, are those really the questions I have to ask myself? I'm like, that's really the question you have to ask yourself. Yeah. But again, with anything, when it comes to growth, when it comes to pleasure, you have to understand too, we're so uncomfortable believing that we're worthy of it. So we have to get really comfortable with just allowing ourselves to know that disconnected sex is not just disconnected sex.
mm-hmm.
It's really having to be like, fuck, like, you know, work through it with the person that you're with or work through it on yourself. But also too, like there might be something else going on and it's okay if that's something that you want to experience more and it's not possible, in my personal opinion.
I think that kind of leads to, I don't know if it's one more question, but I think it's the last question from what we wrote down. But with your mind being so busy, Rox and I were speaking about earlier, there's a lot of women and men, but obviously majority women that have been through like sexual abuse, whether it be with someone that you don't know or maybe a partner that you've been with in your life. And how would you, I know that you were speaking about sex therapists and all of that earlier, but how would someone move forward from not allowing that sexual abuse to like filter through to their new relationships or new sexual relationships and be able to like fully experience sex as like a pleasurable experience, if that makes sense?
Totally. So I'm just going to put like a trigger warning that I am going to talk about my own personal experience. So, and then probably for the next 3 minutes. So if you want to skip forward, please do so. But I was sexually assaulted many years ago, and I very much struggled and worried that my sexual liberation would be gone because of that. And people do respond differently to sexual assault, which is why I always say, like, don't go to a sex coach for that. Like, and I'm not saying like, oh, we can't do it. Like, we actually can't. There is so much more that you deserve to dive into if you are someone that has been sexually assaulted. Again, no matter who it's by, no matter what level or what happened, it is so important to work through those feelings, because even if you tell yourself you're okay, or even if you tell yourself like, you know, time has passed, there are likely going to be things that come up that you deserve to work through and that you deserve to express. So I know it is a privilege to be able to say get therapy or go to help, because it is expensive, especially over here in the Americas, but it really is important to start working through that and finding someone that you can dig through that with. For me personally, I realized that in my situation, my abuser wanted to take that power from me. And that was his goal. He told the police that himself, that was his motive, to take, you know, confident women's confidence away from them. So for me, it was allowing myself to know like that, because that was the goal. And I'm lucky, in a weird way, I feel lucky to know that. But for me, I was like, okay, he wanted to take that away from me. He wanted to ruin something so beautiful for me. So I, again, not liking the rules, was like, I'm going to go against everything that he tried to do. And, you know, I used that as my driving force to connect back with myself. After the assault, I spent a lot of time self-pleasuring and bringing back the pleasure for me and only me, before even diving into it with partners. I got really good with just being with my naked self. I had to even just like practice wearing like no bra out. I had to practice like and get comfortable again, feeling confident wearing like clothes that I was assaulted in back out in public. And so, but that was part of my healing process, and everyone's is going to be different. And, you know, no matter where you live in the world, it's going to be approached differently, the way that like, you know, like that we deal with it. But to answer that question, like, please allow yourself to get help. Even if you think you're okay, you deserve to work through your feelings and your emotions, but also to like allow yourself to take some time to connect back with yourself and allow yourself to feel pleasure for you again, because it usually is something that is so oftenly robbed from us. But again, like, I'm not a sex therapist, so I don't know like the psychological steps on how to overcome that. I just can speak from my own experience in recognizing that I was essentially like going to have to make two decisions. It was either going to consume me, or I was going to have to really learn how to take that back and figure out what that looks like for me. And I do, even now to this day, think that my coaching is so inclusive and my coaching is so based on education and awareness for that reason, because I want people to know, no matter what, like, you do have rights as an individual, right? Like when I teach people how to take nudes, I'm like, these are the things to watch for. Like, these are your rights when you're sending out photos. These are the rights that you have. This is the place that you can check, because we do believe sometimes too that these situations do take from us, and they're traumatic as fuck, but we have to like allow ourselves to know that that's okay. Like, it's okay to be hurting no matter what happened to you. You don't have to shame yourself if it wasn't, right? We hear horrific stories. We don't have to shame ourselves just because it wasn't that. Everyone's is valuable, but really, yeah, working through that is really important.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah. And just connect with yourself again, right? Like, spend time having baths by yourself, spend time dating yourself, going to get coffees. Like, if you're nervous to do things, like, allow yourself to do them when you're ready, or work through that. Like, no one's pressuring you to get back, and we should not be telling people to just forget about it, or other people are different. That can carry with you, and my own has carried with me since then. I don't worry about it as much as I used to, but it's still part of my journey, right?
Yeah. I think everyone's so different and everyone deals with things so differently. But I love what you said, how you can either let it consume you or you can work through it. Because we always say, like, the only thing you control in your life is your choices and your actions and your reactions. So you can either choose to work through it, face your demons, do whatever like dark and dirty work you need to do to come out and like to be better about it, or you can choose to let it consume you.
Yeah, and something too that really helped me was really like being a good ally for everyone else. So for me, it was like, you know, reporting it. When I see men commenting on my friends' photos that are very sexist or have like a very like rooted base of like assault, I will message them and say, that message is sexual assault. That message is harassment. Like really, like, because it's not your individual responsibility to change the way that people view others and the way like that we view sexual assault. You can't change the world, and you have to allow yourself to know that. But even for me, it's like I will go now and go to, you know, marches that are about women's violence. I go and put myself in those positions because it's like I have to be part of the change, and I have to encourage others to be as well. And I have to hold men, women, non-binary folks, anyone around me accountable. And that's how I also use my situation. And that's how I have helped myself heal, is, you know, fighting the fight with my sisters and my brothers and my non-binary folk friends. I fight with them rather than completely retracting. Like I realize that it's not just what we can do, it's making sure that everyone else is also doing what they can do to make sure that they don't sexually assault people.
Yeah. And I think as humans, we always forget how essential like having a sense of community is. So what you doing, going and doing the marches and standing up for people and creating this like place where people can actually feel comfortable with you and know that they're not alone. It's just such an amazing thing to see, because we need other people to help us to know that this is normal and it's okay to feel this way. And there's other people that have gone through the same thing and other people who are feeling and dealing with the same thing. So it's just amazing to see.
And people need to know that we're not going to let it happen, right? Like, I think that's the big thing is like, since my assault, like I call out so many people and left, right, and center. Oh, you're fucking overreacting. Oh, you're being a snowflake, blah, blah. Good, cool. I'm not, but you're being predatory. So I'm going to call you out on that, right? Like, it's really recognizing that like it's not the survivors. I guess what I want to say is it's not the survivor's job to like, it should not be like the only pressures on them to fix things. Like, we need to make sure that like we are healing, but we're also holding other people accountable to heal themselves so they don't fucking do that shit. Right? Like, it's like really understanding the way we see bodies, the way we see sexual assault, why people think it's okay to do it, why we allow the microaggressions to be passed down every single day. It's really like working on getting to the root of it, not just like, but we do have to take responsibility for ourselves in the day-to-day. Yeah.
Completely. It's like you say, I mean,
it's a really tough conversation.
No, I mean, it's true what you say. It goes back to the source of everything. It's not just the outcome. Like, you shouldn't just have to deal with things the way that they turn out. Like, we should be able to deal with things from the source. And I completely get where you're coming from. Yeah, it just makes it like a lot more relatable. I think also with social media and stuff nowadays, it's like, and you know what, like you say, call a spade a spade. People look up to people with like all these followers, and it's like people that you want to watch every single day. And oh my gosh, okay, she bought those that cereal, so I'm gonna buy that cereal. You know, it's just how it is. And if people can see that people with a following, or people that do have social media accounts or OnlyFans or whatever it is, are people that are still wanting to make a change and wanting to make things better, it makes it better, I think, for everybody else to just be like, oh my God, she's doing it. Like, I'm definitely a part of this. And I mean, it's kind of sad that it's like a movement in that way, but it's also positive because it does create change. So I think that also leads with your whole theme about authenticity. Like, if you're being authentic and you're being yourself, it allows people also to just be like, I'm on board.
Yeah, totally. It opens the gates for others to do the same.
Completely.
Right. So when we call out, like, to go back to like the sexual assault question, like when we call out the microaggressions, it allows others to feel like they can do it as well, as long as they're in a safe position, right? Like, we have to constantly lead through integrity and authenticity so that it allows others to feel empowered to do the exact same. That's how we're going to start seeing that shift.
Completely. Do you have any other questions?
I don't have questions, but I mean, I just wanted to say we were excited to speak to you, but you've like
blown my mind out of the water.
Like, completely surpassed expectations. It's been so interesting. And like, thank you for being so open and so vulnerable and so real, because it's so nice and refreshing to see people doing well that are open, real, and vulnerable like you.
Totally. And to anyone listening, if you're struggling with confidence, sex, whatever it is, like, just know that I speak with like 10 years of my journey underneath me. So if you're like, easy for her to say, like, she's fucking crushing it, just know, like, I wasn't always crushing it. And this is 8 years of me becoming the person that I am. And I'm continuously becoming the person that I am. The difference is that I allow myself to know that it's possible and that I'm deserving of finding my true self and being my authentic self, and knowing that I can trust in who I am, that it will attract the right people. And so, like I said, if you're sitting there now and you're not really connecting to much of my story because you're like, well, fuck, like, I can't even do 1/10 of what this bitch is doing. I was you. So let me be the mirror. Please don't compare yourself to me, but let me be the mirror to show you that all things are possible when you allow yourself to just be who you are and really dive into the depths of who you are.
Completely. And I feel like we need to ask you, I know that you are moving off of like Instagram and more onto OnlyFans, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners are really going to want to like follow your journey or just to be a part of everything that you do. So where would people be able to find you on Instagram or OnlyFans or wherever your vibe is?
I know, I feel like I'm in like every pocket of the earth right now. But for every single platform, all my handles are Erika's Confidence Co. And Erika is with a K. So that is my Instagram. That's my TikTok. My OnlyFans is onlyfans.com/Erika's Confidence Co. And that's where, like I said, all my content is living on for the most part. So yeah, one of those three is where I'm mainly at. I'm on Twitter and Reddit, but that's only because I have to start doing that for my OnlyFans. But don't go and follow me there. And if you actually do know one of those platforms really well, hit me up, because I'm still learning those ones. I'm like, oh fuck, I got to learn a whole new platform. But for the most part, I spend most of my time on Instagram, TikTok, and on my OnlyFans. So you can find me there. I also have my own podcast. It's called Rated E for Erika. And I talk all about my journey. I do like shoot the shit. I talk about confidence. I do how-to. So there's a whole realm of information in those as well. And that can be found on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts as well.
Amazing. I think that's amazing for people to know. It's super informative, and some people love to listen to podcasts. Well, everyone that's listening to us right now loves to listen to podcasts. So
Totally. Yes.
And then before we go, we always forget to ask our rapid fire questions.
We're supposed to ask them at the beginning, and we always like just get straight into the work. We're like, so tell us everything.
With the dirty. Okay, yeah, hit me up. I'm ready.
Okay, number one is, what is your favorite quote or saying?
Favorite quote or saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Next question. I don't have one. I literally just am always like, fuck yeah, bitch, get it, bitch. Like, that's like my favorite. That fires me up.
There we go. That's your favorite saying.
Literally just anything to do with bitch. And it's not a derogatory. It's literally like my grandpa could be a bitch. It's like, yes, bitch.
It's
fuck
literally
yeah,
your fire up word is bitch.
I love that.
Love
literally,
it.
I'm like, let's go, bitches. Yeah. So, yep.
Easy.
Okay, what?
So much inspiration. And they're like, what's your favorite quote? And I'm like, fuck yeah, bitch.
You know, literally, that's what the best part about the rapid fire questions is. It's supposed to relate to each like guest that we have, and that's part of like who you are. It would be really not you if you just sat and gave us a quote from the Dalai Lama. Do you know what I mean? So like,
truly.
I love that you gave us that.
Okay, next question.
What is your spirit animal?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna okay, you're gonna hate me. So spirit animals are very much rooted in Indigenous language, and in Canada, our Indigenous are treated extremely poorly. So I do not connect to any spirit animal just because it's saved for the Indigenous communities and it's within their cultural practice. However, I do have like a spirit personnel that I would love to be, and it is Hannah Montana.
I love that answer. Also, I love that you gave that answer because I didn't even know that. So I think it's super important.
I learned about last year. I learned about last year as well. I was asked that, and then I looked up what the meaning of spirit animal was, and then I was like, oh, there's a whole world of that I didn't understand. So yeah, it's very much rooted in Indigenous language. So I always say spirit personnel rather than animal.
I love that. We might have to change our question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, that's what the whole point is about all these podcasts. I mean, you get to learn things, and no one even knew we'd learn about that today. So thank you for introducing us to that, because we need to change one of our questions.
I love it. No, I'm open to changing it and being like, oh fuck yeah, okay, cool, like switch it around, let's go.
100%.
Okay, perfect.
Last one. I'm not going to lie. We were trying to remember if it was 2 or 3, but if you were stuck on a deserted island, what 2 or 3 items would you need to have with you to survive?
My Hayachi wand, which is my vibrator, the one that it's the OG, because you can also use it on your body and on your neck, but you can also get a solid clit stimulation from it. So my Hayachi wand, if you don't have a Hayachi wand, y'all need our sleeping on it. So my Hayachi wand, my insulin, because without it I would die. So my insulin, my syringes, and probably my any type of music. Anything that I can dance to, like any type of stereo or something like that. I would be so happy with just those 3 things.
I love that answer.
Sounds like
I love all your answers.
I'm just picturing myself now. I'm like on an island by myself with my favorite music playing and my vibrator. What else?
What a dream.
Everyone's like, oh, like this is you dying. I'm like, this is my life. I'm like, hit me up. Like, this sounds like
this is where I start living.
Fuck yeah. I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a piece of heaven to me.
I love that.
And
Thank
you.
you.
Stars instead of your star projector lights.
Completely.
Love that. No, those are good questions though.
Thank you. We've now changed one of them. Yeah. Thank you for letting us know that. Though.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Oh, Erika, this has been phenomenally amazing. We've learned so much, and it's just been so much fun to speak to someone who's so outgoing and confident and comfortable speaking about these things that are really so taboo because of all of our preconditioning and stuff, and to believe that it's not something we should talk about. So it's been so lovely to have this open, raw conversation with you.
Yes, I agree. And thank you so much for hosting me and having me and allowing myself to share my story. I think a lot of people are nervous to share the realities of what it's like to work in the sex industry, and just the fact that you gave me a platform to share some of the realities that I go through, just even as a sex educator, not even as a sex worker, is very awesome. So thank you so much for that.
Of course. Thank you for being on the show. And as we said, guys, go and follow Erika on all of her social media accounts, and definitely give her podcast a little subscribe. I was going to say give it a subscribe button, but that does not make sense. Like, hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, or come subscribe to my OnlyFans. I promise you it's worth it.
Yes, number 1.
Say, good luck with the OnlyFans. Be interested to see how it
hits up
for you.
I told my team I'm going to the top by December, whether it's through my asshole or through my soul.
Yeah,
amazing.
Manifestation, baby, you got it.
I literally filmed a video this morning twerking naked with my full pussy out, and I'm like, you know what? Desperate times call for desperate measures. If this is what's gonna work,
why not? Rock on, literally.
I know I'm not the only one who wants to twerk to a camera with their pussy hanging out, looking like an absolute snack with a towel in their hair. Okay? I know
you're not. You're not, honestly. Erika, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And guys, please, if you have also any questions or whatever for future podcasts that we could probably do with Erika in the future, let us know. Yes. And also give us a little feedback about how you enjoyed this episode, because I'm sure you're all going to love it and it's going to speak a lot to all of you. But until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.